The book I chose to read is The Book of Negroes by Lawrence Hill. Aminata Diallo is the protagonist in the novel who proves to be extremely strong, smart, and determined. Her father's name is Mamadou and her mother's name is Sari. She was born in the Fula village in Africa and has 2 moon-shaped scars on her cheeks, symbolizing which village she is from. She was kidnapped at the age of 11. The story begins in 1745 when Aminata gets kidnapped by slave traders while out at night and taken on a brutal trip overseas to America. There she is sold into slavery and taken to an indigo plantation in South Carolina. On the plantation, Aminata has a baby boy with her husband who gets taken away from her. After this, she refuses to work and so is sold again to a man named Mr. Lindo. Years later, Mr. Lindo takes Aminata to New York where she manages to escape him. Later, because of her loyalty to Britain during the American Revolution, Aminata is granted freedom and enlisted to enter the names of other former slave loyalists into the Book of Negroes before their journey to Canada, where she will settle in Nova Scotia. Aminata finally makes it to Nova Scotia and gives birth to her second child, May, who eventually gets kidnapped by a white family when riots start to break out between the 2 groups of people. After Aminata loses both her husband and her child, she decides to move back to Africa, but later decides to go to England to help the abolitionists in their fight to end slavery. The thesis I've come up with for this book is how meaningful relationships help Aminata when she is faced with adversity. The relationships between Aminata's parents, husband, and friends become essential for her survival. Without the guidance and support of these people, there's a very good chance Aminata would have died a slave. In terms of Aminata's parents, her father Mamadou often broke rules for her benefit by teaching her how to read and write in Arabic. He knew that teaching her was wrong, but did it anyway because he knew that someday in the future, Aminata would need an education. This was shown when Aminata says, "Papa was not supposed to show his daughter how to read and write." Aminata questions why he does this when she says, "Why did he break the rules? Perhaps he knew that something was coming and wanted me to be ready." By Aminata thinking this, it foreshadows how the education she got from her father helps her in her future. Mamadou wants Aminata to be prepared for her life without him. Aminata thinks that perhaps he knew what her future had in store, and so he wanted to prepare her to survive it without him. Later on in the novel, an education does prove to be useful when she befriends a man who sees her potential and pays her to write for him. Without the money from this man, Aminata would easily not have made it through that time in her life. This all stems back to Aminata's father and the lessons he taught her. Mamadou was also Aminata's motivator, who always believed in her and gave her the strength to persevere, even after he died. Aminata often imagined what advice her father would give her if he was still alive, an example being, "Do what it takes to stay alive. I am watching over you, daughter." This shows how great the impact Aminata's father made on her. Despite his absence, Aminata was still able to hear his voice giving her advice. This helps her by knowing she must persist in her fight for survival in America. Aminata's mother, Sierra, also had a great impact on her life by teaching her how to catch babies. Delivering babies proves to be useful later in the story when Aminata becomes Georgia's steady helper, catching babies in all the Low Country islands. Georgia is a friend of Aminata's who takes her with her when she delivers babies to avoid being left alone with their master Appleby for fear of being raped. If Aminata's mother did not teach her how to deliver babies, she would have been left alone on the plantation with Appleby. This shows how much of a positive impact Aminata's mother made on her life. Along with Aminata's parents, her relationship with her husband, Shekura, also played a significant role in helping her survive. It was Shekura who gave her life meaning so that she could fight to stay alive and continue to be strong. Aminata talks about her husband saying, "I longed for his face and his voice and the very smell of him that reminded me of home." This shows just how the thought of Shekura helped Aminata stay persistent in her fight for survival. Aminata desperately misses her homeland, and Shekura gives her comfort in that he was also kidnapped from the same place she was. Without spending her time longing for her husband and the land he comes from, she could have lost hope in herself and given up on trying to survive. Those who have something to live for are often the ones who can survive and overcome the difficulties they are faced with when enduring challenging times. This is what famous psychiatrist Viktor Frankl believed. He once said, "Suffering ceases to be suffering at the moment it finds a meaning." Shekura was Aminata's hope. The hope she found in him gave her meaning to her life, therefore willing her to live. Like Frankl explains, Aminata's suffering seems not as horrible when she is able to think about what gives her life meaning. Shekura not only assists Aminata in her mental fight for survival, but also in her physical fight for survival. Even before Shekharah was Aminadab's husband, he took care of her. For instance, he once brought her a calabash of water and some soap made from shea nuts, and offered to help clean the wound on her thigh. This shows how cared for Aminadab was by Shekharah. Simple things like cleaning a wound could prove deadly back then, and since Aminadab was chained up when this occurred, Shekharah took it upon himself to help her. The friendships Aminadab forms throughout the novel also prove to be useful in helping her in times of struggle. One person who proves this is Georgia, who becomes a caregiver and mother-like figure to Aminadab while on the plantation. When Aminadab was sick, Georgia covered her in a blanket and brought a gourd of water to her lips. Aminadab was too unwell from being on the slave ship to help herself, so Georgia took her under her wing and nursed her back to health. By having Georgia as a friend, Aminadab not only got security, but also love, which is such an important aspect of survival. On the same plantation as Georgia, there is a man named Mohammed who becomes Aminadab's friend and teacher and assists her in her education, which ultimately has a profoundly positive impact on her life. He tells Aminadab, "I was not planning to teach reading to anyone, but I have seen the brightness in your eyes." Mohammed was the first person since Aminadab's parents who saw how brilliant she was. Aminadab enjoys learning, and it ends up helping her many times in her future. For instance, Aminadab is spared grueling work in exchange for her reading and writing skills. Although she would not know it at the time, the friendship that formed between her and Mohammed became crucial for her survival. Another of Aminadab's friends, Sam Francis, helps her escape from slavery, giving her the freedom she had not had since she was 11. He becomes a friend of Aminadab's when she travels from Charlestown to New York with her owner, Mr. Lindo. He helps her in many ways, but the most significant being when he advised her to go north for now, go up Broadway and into the woods. This was Sam telling Aminadab to run away and escape from Mr. Lindo. By saying this, it sets Aminadab on the path of becoming free. Throughout the novel, it was Aminadab's ultimate goal to be free so she can return to her homeland, and so without the help and encouragement of Sam, Aminadab might have died a slave. In conclusion, it is clear as to how genuine relationships in Aminadab's life help her when she goes through hard times. This closeness is seen in her relationships with her parents Mamadou and Sira, her husband Shekharah, and her close friends Georgia, Mohammed, and Sam. Every one of these people contributes something valuable to her life that helps her keep fighting.